Hello everyone and welcome to today's video on the risks of doing business in China with a focus on American companies' concerns. This is Twilight of the Dollar, and today we'll be diving deep into the complex world of international business, geopolitics and economic strategy. In recent years, the business landscape in China has become increasingly challenging for American companies. What was once seen as a land of opportunity is now fraught with risks and uncertainties. We'll explore why this shift has occurred, the impact of sanctions and tariffs, and how China's energy strategy with Russia is reshaping the playing field. So, grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's unpack this fascinating and complex topic. Let's start by looking at how the business environment in China has evolved over the past few decades. In the 1990s and early 2000s, China was seen as the ultimate growth market. American companies rushed to establish a presence there, attracted by the promise of a massive consumer base and low production costs. It seemed like a win-win situation. However, the tide has been turning in recent years. The risks of doing business in China have increased significantly, and many American companies are now reassessing their strategies. One of the key factors driving this change is the increasing tension between the United States and China. As geopolitical rivalries have intensified, the business environment has become more unpredictable. For instance, in 2023, China implemented a new counter-espionage law that has raised concerns among foreign businesses. This law expanded the definition of spying and increased the government's power to access data and information from companies operating in China. As a result, many American companies are finding it increasingly difficult to conduct due diligence and ensure compliance with both Chinese and US laws. The risk of inadvertently running afoul of Chinese regulations has increased, potentially exposing companies to legal troubles and reputational damage. Now let's delve into how EU and US sanctions and increased tariffs are contributing to instability for American firms with existing infrastructure in China. In recent years, both the EU and the US have imposed various sanctions and tariffs on Chinese goods and companies. While these measures are intended to address concerns about unfair trade practices and national security, they've had significant ripple effects on American businesses operating in China. For example, in 2024, the Biden administration increased tariffs on $18 billion worth of Chinese imports, targeting strategic sectors such as steel, aluminum, semiconductors, and electric vehicles. While this move was aimed at protecting American workers and businesses from unfair competition, it has also created challenges for US companies with supply chains in China. These tariffs have increased costs for American companies that rely on Chinese suppliers or components. This has forced many businesses to reevaluate their supply chains and consider relocating production to other countries, a process that can be expensive and time-consuming. Moreover, the threat of additional sanctions or tariffs creates an atmosphere of uncertainty. American companies with significant investments in China are left wondering if their operations could be disrupted by future policy changes. This uncertainty is compounded by the risk of Chinese retaliation. As tensions escalate, there's always the possibility that China could impose its own sanctions or restrictions on American companies operating within its borders. All of these factors contribute to a more unstable and risky business environment for American firms in China. Companies are having to navigate a complex web of regulations and geopolitical tensions, often feeling caught in the middle of a larger conflict between nations. Now let's shift gears and discuss how China is leveraging its relationship with Russia to improve its energy cost structure, and how this could potentially impact American businesses. In the wake of Western sanctions on Russia following its invasion of Ukraine, China has significantly increased its imports of Russian oil. This strategic move has allowed China to secure energy resources at discounted prices, giving it a competitive advantage in terms of energy costs. According to data from 2023, China's seaborne crude imports from Russia reached an all-time high of about 1.4 million barrels per day in March of that year. This increase in cheap Russian oil imports has saved Chinese refiners billions of dollars. While this strategy benefits China's economy, it poses several risks. First, it puts China at odds with Western countries that have imposed sanctions on Russian energy exports. This could potentially lead to secondary sanctions on Chinese companies, which would have significant implications for American businesses operating in China or working with Chinese partners. Moreover, China's increased reliance on Russian energy could make it more vulnerable to supply disruptions or geopolitical pressures. This could lead to instability in China's energy market, which would have knock-on effects for businesses operating there. For American companies, this situation creates additional layers of complexity. They must now consider not only the direct risks of operating in China, but also the potential implications of China's energy relationship with Russia. Part 4. The threat of sanctions on Chinese banks. One of the most significant risks on the horizon for American companies doing business in China is the potential for sanctions on Chinese banks. This threat has become more pronounced as China's economic ties with Russia have deepened. The United States has already shown its willingness to use financial sanctions as a tool of foreign policy. In 2024, the United States expanded its potential sanctions against foreign financial institutions supporting Russia's war effort, listing 4 financial institutions located in China. If such sanctions were to be imposed on major Chinese banks, it could have severe implications for American companies operating in China. These firms rely on Chinese banks for a range of services, from processing payments to providing loans for their operations. Sanctions on Chinese banks could disrupt these financial services, making it difficult for American companies to conduct day-to-day business operations in China. It could also complicate international transactions, affecting global supply chains and trade flows. Furthermore, the mere threat of such sanctions creates uncertainty, which can deter investment and long-term planning. American companies may hesitate to expand their operations in China, or may even consider reducing their presence to mitigate potential risks. Part 5. Alternative manufacturing nations. As geopolitical tensions rise and Western economies seek to diversify their manufacturing bases away from China and Russia-aligned nations, several countries are emerging as potential alternatives. Let's explore some of these nations that could potentially fill the manufacturing gap. Vietnam has been rapidly emerging as a manufacturing powerhouse, particularly in electronics and textiles. With its strategic location, relatively low labor costs, and improving infrastructure, Vietnam is attracting significant foreign investment. Major companies like Samsung, Intel, and Nike have already established substantial operations here. The country's government has been proactive in signing free trade agreements, including with the European Union, which makes it an attractive option for companies looking to avoid tariffs on Chinese goods. However, Vietnam does face challenges in terms of skilled labor shortages and potential capacity constraints. India, with its large workforce and growing technological capabilities, is positioning itself as a major alternative to China. The government's Make in India initiative has been attracting foreign investment across various sectors, including electronics, automotive, and pharmaceuticals. Prime Minister Narendra Modi recently stated, "India is ready to be your trusted partner in your supply chains. We have the skills and talent needed to meet your business needs." However, India still needs to overcome challenges related to infrastructure, bureaucracy, and labor laws to fully realize its manufacturing potential. Mexico's proximity to the United States makes it an attractive option for nearshoring. The country has a strong manufacturing base, particularly in the automotive and electronics industries. The USMCA, formerly NAFTA, provides preferential access to the US market, making Mexico an appealing choice for companies serving North American customers. Malaysia has been gaining traction, especially in the semiconductor industry. The country has a skilled workforce and well-developed infrastructure. In 2023, Malaysia's semiconductor manufacturing industry comprised 20.5% of its total manufacturing industry output. Intel, for instance, announced plans in 2021 to invest more than $7 billion in a new chip packaging and testing facility in Malaysia. As the largest economy in Southeast Asia, Indonesia offers a vast domestic market and a large labor force. The government has been working on improving the ease of doing business and attracting foreign investment. Industries like textiles, electronics, and automotive components are seeing growth. Thailand has a strong automotive manufacturing sector and is now focusing on high-tech industries. The country's Thailand 4.0 policy aims to transform it into a high-income nation through technology and innovation. While these countries offer promising alternatives, it's important to note that shifting supply chains is a complex and time-consuming process. Companies will need to carefully consider factors such as labor costs, skill levels, infrastructure, political stability, and intellectual property protection when making decisions about relocating manufacturing operations. Part 6: BRICS and China's domestic economy. As Western trade potentially declines, BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and China's domestic economy could potentially absorb some of the lost revenue. Let's explore how. The BRICS nations have been working on strengthening their economic ties and reducing dependence on Western economies. The new development bank, established by BRICS, is one example of their efforts to create alternative financial structures. India in particular has been seeing strong economic growth and could potentially increase its imports from China. Brazil, with its vast natural resources, could also strengthen its trade relationships within the BRICS bloc. However, it's important to note that the BRICS countries have had divergent economic trajectories. While China and India have seen significant growth, Brazil and South Africa have faced economic challenges in recent years. China has been actively working on boosting its domestic consumption and reducing reliance on exports. The dual circulation strategy introduced by President Xi Jinping aims to foster domestic demand while remaining open to international trade and investment. Recent surveys of Chinese factory managers show a mixed but generally positive outlook. The Caixin Private Survey in June 2024 showed a marginal increase to 51.0 from 50.9, marking the quickest growth in factory output in 2 years. China is also focusing on developing high-tech industries. The official PMI for high-tech manufacturing rose to 52.3 in June 2024, from 50.7 in May, reflecting the government's push to enhance investments in modernizing factories, especially in sectors like computer chips and electric vehicles. However, challenges remain. The property sector, a significant driver of China's economy, has been facing difficulties. Recent measures like reductions in mortgage rates and down payments aim to revitalize this sector. While BRICS countries and China's domestic economy have the potential to absorb some of the lost Western trade, it's unlikely they could fully compensate for it in the short term. The global economy is deeply interconnected, and a significant reduction in trade between major economies would likely have far-reaching impacts that couldn't be easily offset. Part 7. Conclusion. As we've explored today, the risks of doing business in China for American companies are multifaceted and evolving. From changing regulations and geopolitical tensions to energy strategies and potential financial sanctions, the business landscape in China has become increasingly complex. While China remains an important market and manufacturing hub for many American firms, these companies are having to navigate an increasingly challenging environment. They must balance the potential rewards of operating in China with the growing risks and uncertainties. As we move forward, it's clear that American companies will need to be more vigilant and adaptable than ever in their approach to doing business in China. They'll need to closely monitor geopolitical developments, diversify their supply chains, and have robust risk management strategies in place. Thank you for joining me for this exploration of the risks of business in China. If you found this video informative, please like and subscribe for more content on international business and economics. Until next time, take care.